And hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. In this video, we'll be talking about actually implementing our AWS stuff. Now, the first thing I want us to change is here, of the start script, go meteor settings.json. So whenever you say npm start, it will automatically start up with your settings.json as a consideration. Once you have done that, you can simply just go npm start to start your program, and it will automatically attach that settings file right here to this. Alright, so now it's running on localhost 3000. Then we get this blinding light, so let's just log in. I'm out of wipe night database again, let me just create a new account. And there we go. So what we want to do now is we want to go to our profile, and here we want to upload a new profile picture. So let's get right on that. So here at the user profile page, we now want to attach an upload. This upload will contain an avatar, and it will contain a limit text. So it will pretty much work the same as what we currently have. So limit text, username, or nothing, and just limit it to about 7 characters. And after we added some basic styling to it, we should now have a basic avatar here. Now also note, it seems Meteor here has another update. Again, you can follow this update, but while we're on topic of that, if you go to your package.json and we take a look at our updates here, so let's go here and just update to the latest version. So go like that, because it does contain something very useful right here. This right here is very handy because it does make compiling your program, if you're using TypeScript, a lot faster. So I highly recommend you add this modern tick right here. So throw that in there and you're good to go. And you'll notice that almost immediately you get a performance improvement. There are some caveats with this, so you will need to just make sure that all of this is still working with it. And then finally, to apply the latest React Meteor data changes, just copy this here, throw it in there, and it will add the latest React Meteor data. And in here, finally, there are breaking changes. First one does not really matter too much for us. And then this one here also does not really matter too much to us right now. But if you have existing projects, you might want to take a look at these breaking changes. Now that you have that, you can say npm start again, and you'll notice that now your program is considerably faster to just compile and get ready. If you had that issue where you would save it and then you need to wait for the whole page to reload, that should also be somewhat fixed right now. So it should be as it should actually be, and it should just hot reload in the backend, just adding things, and the whole page doesn't need to reload. But if you're having problems, you can remove modern true here, because then we'll just remove the modern compiler. Alright, now we're up to date with the latest Meteor, plus we have a faster compiler. This won't really change how our app looks or work, but at least now we have it. So now we have an upload, and this is where people can drag and drop their images or click to upload. We now need to actually implement taking that image and uploading it to AWS. Now I would like to go to server, then in utils create a new file called s3.ts. You may want to create a new folder called AWS and put S3 in there. The reason we're putting it here on server is because this should never be accessed from the front end. However, I would like to add a simple function to easily upload to an S3 file whenever we need. That's not necessarily a Meteor method. Now we need 2 dependencies if we want to do this. Now we can search up AWS SDK. Then here we get AWS SDK. Now this is actually split into a bunch of other smaller SDKs. So generally, in this day and age, you don't just pull out the whole AWS SDK, you search for specific ones. Now the specific ones we want is, and I'll just type this out here, npm install at AWS SDK /client -s3. So this will be your S3 thing. So this will allow us to get objects, to delete objects, to save them, just everything to do with S3 or buckets. And then finally at AWS SDK S3 request pre-signer. You can just go search these things up on Google as well if you don't want to type them out. So just search them up here, then you will find them in npm and whatnot. But you want to install these 2. I'm going to attach Meteor to the front. And then finally, here in this S3, you can just say const S3 is equal to a new S3 client. If you don't have autocomplete immediately, just reload window and it should give you an autocomplete. And in here we need to specify our S3 settings. So region would be Meteor, import that, dot settings, dot public, dot AWS region. And of course, if you go into your settings, you'll find an AWS region key there. And then credentials. And please, please, please take note. Do not do this on the front end. Do not create this S3 client on the front end, because you are putting very important data in here that should not be seen in the front end. Anything in public is safe, like the region is safe. That could be accessed anywhere. However, your credentials, your AWS key ID, and your AWS access key, those two should simply not appear on the front end. So only do this on the back end. And then just go access key ID, and it will actually autocomplete for us. Meteor.settings, and this is not in public, so we can just immediately access it via AWS access key ID. And then finally, secret access key will be AWS secret access key. And here we have created our S3 connection pretty much. So let's start with uploading. So export const upload file to S3. So here I'm going to pretty much just copy paste so we can save time. Maybe just add some documentation as well. And just make this asynchronous and add your fields here. So we'll be taking in a key, a buffer, and this is the file, and then what type of file it is. So key is what it's going to be stored as. So it's going to have a unique key so we can always reference it. The file we want to upload, and then is it an MP4, is it a PNG, whatnot. We then take that and create a buffer array from it, which is what AWS needs. And we're just creating some basic things here. So this is the bucket we're going to use. So we're going to save it to whatever bucket we specified here. If you have multiple buckets, then I recommend you specify which specific one you want. Give it a key, give it a data, so that's the thing we want to upload, and in the content type. Then this put object command, we just update the import so we get it from here. And this will pretty much try and save it to AWS. And then if it is saved, we'll get a response. All right, so now we have an upload file to S3, which we can use to actually upload files to S3. Now again, we can't really access this on the front end because it is inside the server. And this is for security reasons, so we don't accidentally try and call this on the front end. But we can use it anywhere on the server, and that means we can use it in multiple Meteor method calls. So here in import API, we can create a new folder called AWS, new file, index.ts, get.ts, set.ts, models.ts, with a new folder called methods, and then just moving all of this except for models into methods. Now inside of set, we can actually create our Meteor call. So set.aws.upload file. So I'm just going to copy paste quickly. Then we just need to create this method, and I'll explain what's happening here in a second. We just need to create this model. And the model will take up pretty much everything we wanted inside of our S3 here. So all of these details. So we go here, we just paste that there. And then here we just import that. And in this upload file to S3 is the function we just created. So we can just add that import as well. So first we just check, and we need to import check. We check that the key, the buffer, and the content type are all free strings and that they are actually provided. Then we simply upload it and return the result. And that's the complex part done. The most complex part was simply just this, which is not really complex at all. However, to the untrained eye, this might look a little bit confusing, but simply put, we're just working with the base 64 stuff, then passing all these parameters into AWS, sending it up, getting a response. Simple as that. Now that we have all this, we can go back to UI, user profile page, index. And just ignore the dog in the background, the thing barks at air. So here we just go and we say list type. This type is equal to just picture circle. And this just pretty much says how it should look. Then we just say show upload list. We make that equal to false because we don't want them to see what previous things they have uploaded. It's just unnecessary to implement that. Then we can implement a drag and drop system. So if we go here and say on drop, we can take in an event. And we just go object.values e.datatransfer.file. So we're getting all the files that were dropped. For each file. So for every file that was dropped, we just check that the type is what we expect. So JPEG, PNG, or JPEG. Yeah, so just one of these three. Of course, there's better ways to do this. I'm just choosing the quick and dirty way of just checking, hey, does the file name include a JPEG, PNG, or whatnot. We should also just actually check if there's at least just one file. There shouldn't be like 10 files, but we'll keep that. That could be homework for you. Just make sure if they drop 10 files, you tell them, hey, you can't do that. Don't drop 10 files. Okay, so now drag and drop works, and we check what type of file it is. Then we create a custom request. So this is our upload. And here we just want the file that's being sent by this request on error and on success. And this is actually all part of props, so we can just do that. Otherwise, if you don't want to split them up like this, you can simply just go props or whatever. And this will contain all of those items for you. Now we want to do two things here. The first thing we want to do is we want to actually upload this image. Then the second thing is we want to save it to their profile. And actually the third thing is we then want to just refetch their profile so we have their profile photo. So to get started, we can create a new function that's going to go into this custom request called const handle upload single image. And you can of course kind of make this a function that's in a utils folder that you can just reuse as often as you please. And this will contain the image, which can be of type blob, string, that should actually be or, RC file, which is from Design, so you'll need to import that. So it can be either one of, or it can be any of these three. Just make sure of that you know which one you're getting. I'm just pretty much saying it could be any of these, and I'm just covering them all. And in the old image key, if we're replacing this image, then string or undefined. So we're not going to be doing this one just yet, but if we want to delete the old image, we can use that. If not image, so if no image has actually been provided, so we're just doing a regular check, then return. You're good for an error here as well. Just say, hey, you didn't really give us anything to work with. Then if type of image is not equal to object, then just return. Again, you could show an error message here just to say, hey, this did not actually work. Then const new file, so we're creating a new file, and here we just make sure it's an actual object. So if we get something like a string, we're just going to say, hey, we don't want that. Because we might actually just get a string from this upload here. So we're just making sure we want an object, and that's all. Then the new file will be new file. We pass in that image in an array, and then image as RC file. You could, of course, actually go through all the TypeScript checks here, but for our simplicity's sake and keeping the tutorial under like an hour, we're just going to do that and say .name, .replace, and RC file. There we go. And then we simply want to replace all these spaces with underscores. So that will be \s, I believe, and then G. And that will not be in quotes because this is regex. So just remove that. So pretty much replace all of the spaces with an underscore. And then finally just say what type of file it is. So image.type. And Bob's your uncle. We now have a new file that we can actually work with in a way that we understand. Now here I'm just going to say to do delete old image. And in here I'm going to go const base 64 image is equal to await encode. Actually, we don't even have that yet. So inside of utils, and not server utils, this would be regular utils here, we can create in index.ts. Now this is pretty much just if you don't really know where to put this, or you don't really care where to put something, you just throw it in here. In our case, we'll have this here, and this will just convert an image into a buffer. So we take that, and we can just await it here. And the reason why the naming is probably so weird is because I probably copied it somewhere from Stack Overflow. And a new file. So we're passing it in there, and we're getting a base 64 image in return. We then just check if type of base 64 image, if it is not type of string, then message.error issue encoding image. And then we simply return. Now we can generate the key. So const key equals random, which you import from Meteor, ID. This will give us a nice random ID that in general should not have any duplicates ever generated before, hopefully. Then we can actually upload this image. So we can just go try. Then here we just say const data is equal to method set AWS upload file model. Again, just keeping it easy, because if we know what this is called right here, we can immediately know what this would be called right here. This needs a buffer, which will be the base 64 image that we have now, a content type, which will be the new file dot type, and then a key, which we have generated right here. We can actually move this into the try as well. Actually, we can keep it out here. Then we await meteor.callasync set.aws.upload file. Again, I don't even need to go look what it's called, because here again, this mirrors what this should be called. Just something very handy no matter where you are in this development cycle. And then we just pass in the data we want to upload. In case an error does happen, we can just go console.error, error, and then to do delete file if it was uploaded. So pretty much if the file has already been uploaded but some error happened, just make sure we delete it. You can also make sure here where we delete the old image that you don't maybe delete it here. You only delete it if this was successful. That would actually be a good process to follow. Instead of deleting it, then upload might fail, and then suddenly the guy doesn't have a profile picture at all anymore. So just something you might want to take into consideration. And then message.error. And we're not going to do an error response here because we want to show our own custom message, because we don't want to overwhelm the user with some random error that came from our call here. So failed to upload some images. And then we just return, so no other code is actually executed. And finally return the key of the image that we just uploaded. All right, now that we have this, we can go here and we can say const key is equal to await. Paste that in there. We can now just simply paste in that file because we're handling the file in there, so we can just paste it in there. And then user.photo.key. So if there's an old key, we pass it in. Then if we get a key returned, then here we can just say to do handle save image to user profile. Right now we just want to see and make sure that our upload actually works. So here we can go console.log key, just so we can see if we get a key. npm start. Let's just upload a file. So here I have an image of Pan in my favorite game. Just select that. Actually, we get failed to upload image. What went wrong? You know what we did wrong? We forgot to import it. So if we go to imports and we go to startup and imports, we just need to make sure import, and I'm just going to copy this actually. AWS, and then we're good to go. We just need to make sure that our import or indexer actually imports the other two files. And now we're good. Now if I say, yep, I click Pan, we then get an internal server error, which means we need to go look at this terminal. Resolved credential object not valid. Don't you just love mid-tutorial debugging? My AWS access key ID here is actually incorrect. It should actually just be key. I have no ID here, so there we go. Problem solved. And all this time it was simply just a typo. Oh, woe is me. Okay, so let's remove all of this right here, and all of this, and Bob's your uncle. Now, let's try again. Going to click here, going to upload Pan, and we get a key in turn. So that is the key. So if we go to S3, so here if I refresh, there we go. We now have an object here. Now here's the name. If I click it, it will actually show me some details about this file, which I can actually also download. So we can confirm that it actually works with uploading. And here you can see, just make sure you press this refresh if you don't see anything. There's our object. And now all we need to do is actually fetch that object and show it to the user. But that will be left for the next tutorial because this tutorial is already long enough. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next Meteor tutorial.